Good evening, YouTube audience, on this Thursday, January 22nd. Glad you can join me. I just want to take a time and share the meaning, especially after my uncle's passing um, on January 17th, which is the birthday of my dad's dad. I lost my dad's uncle, who was also an uncle to me, um, on the day that my dad's dad was born. So, something about Capricorn. And so I want to share the meaning because part of what encourages me, despite losing him, and our awesome conversations and wanting to see him again and having him step into my house, which is something I really wanted my uncle to do. I want to take this time and just reflect on, be precise about why I appreciate the music that has been uh, for the for a good part of my adult life, the soundtrack of my adult life, and that is the music of Richard Smallwood. So I just want to take this time. I noticed that IG has kind of cut down the length of the. My lives used to be half an hour long. Now I realize I got to cut it down to 20 minutes. So I'm gonna do my best in that time period. I just want to talk about. I did finish his autobiography, which I highly encourage you to read. It's very encouraging. See, the plan was before his Richard Smallwood's sudden passing. My uncle died January 17th. My um, inspiring musician that inspired me, Richard Smallwood. He's kind of an uncle. I met him briefly at the Gospel Music Workshop of America. I believe this was 2007. I had on a red dashiki, and I was just beyond words. I couldn't even. I was just starstruck. But he was real cool, very, very, very approachable, very polite, very polite. But I want to share and look at. I just finished the autobiography yesterday. I made up in my mind I was going to finish it, even if I'm not able to talk to him about it. And I do want to lift up uh, authors that did take the time to read the autobiography and talk to him about it. I'm trying to pinpoint, particularly, it was three people that are on YouTube now that talked to um, Richard about his autobiography. Um, One was Roland Martin. Another was a musician who Richard complimented, and I'm trying to locate that. And then another is a uh, looks like administrator at Kevin Carter. Kevin Carter interviewed Richard Smallwood, and then um, another interview I saw was by Oakwood Church. Um, I'm trying to locate that and really shout out um, the Oakwood Church people there that made that possible. Carlton Burge. So shout out to um, Carlton Bird for interviewing Richard Smallwood. I want to look at three specific parts in the documentary, not the documentary, in the autobiography. My mind is still frazzled because I'm just like shocked that my uncle passed. I really wasn't expecting that. That still like hit me hard because I was really planning to see him, um, and we made plans about my new house, and it was just shocking. It's just shocking. But what I've been thinking about recently is the theme of the good patriarch. And I know it's hard in this society that's so quick to demonize patriarchy. Um, that's the theme that I'm getting from not only Richard Smallwood's life, but also my uncle's life. Like, it's okay for there to be a benevolent patriarchs. Not all patriarchs are evil and abusive. And I think the God that Richard Smallwood sang about, informed people about in his songs was a good patriarch, was a perfect patriarch. And so I don't think many of us have been given examples of a a responsible patriarch. For whatever reason, colonization or Jim Crow or absent father or slavery, or you could list all the societal reasons why certain men are not good patriarchs or are irresponsible. But that doesn't mean there's no such thing as a responsible patriarch. And I think that's the theme that's really sitting with me now, when I think about Uncle Cully, my uncle who passed. With my father, I hold both men in very high regard in terms of their character, of virtue. And then one thing that struck me in reading Richard Smallwood's 500-page autobiography, he really believes in a benevolent God and a benevolent patriarch and an omniscient patriarch that we should trust. And as a Christian, I get it. But it was the kind of father that he was raised by was not that patriarch, but he still sought that patriarch's love. He still sought that patriarch's affection. He still sought that patriarch's support. And I want to read three parts. The first part, and the beauty of the autobiography is that he does not end his story demonizing and leaving the reader to believe that the only thing true of his stepfather was that he was an abusive patriarch. He is very clear, Richard is, on how, as abusive as his stepfather was, how still instrumental his stepfather was in, just like his mother, Mabel Smallwood, who was a fascinating, amazing, strong, persevering, dedicated woman and mother, who helped Richard become the musician that he is. But I loved how Richard ended his autobiography making clear, my stepfather you should not end this book thinking about him as only a monster. And I think that's very important, um, for us, especially when we think about Black men who seem to get the short end of the stick in terms of compassion and sympathy. As Baldwin said of Alice Walker's, well, no, as Baldwin said of Steven Spielberg's, yeah, imagination of her novel. Um, if Mr. Baldwin said was white, we would feel bad for that cat and hope that he got better. That's what Baldwin said. But because Mr. is Black, we have a different point of view. We want to see him abused as much as he abuses. But it's this kind of bloodthirsty lust for this kind of abuse on him. And so um, Richard Smallwood ends his autobiography telling the reader, do not think of my stepfather as strictly a monster. Okay, there were some redeeming qualities to him and to what he added in my life. Uh, and speaking of responsible men, one of the men he mentions, Richard Smallwood, is one that I happen to go to church with. He was my minister of music when I lived in Florida from '05 to '07. My god sister Chanel was married, and he was the minister of music. His name is Julius James. I wanted to read three parts of Richard's autobiography. Y'all should read. Make sure you read the autobiography. Read this autobiography. Make sure you read it, especially those who know his music, but also those who are clear about what their music is doing. I love Phyllis Hyman because she was clear about her sound and she was clear about the message of the music. Same thing with Richard. He was clear about the sound that he wanted, and he was clear when I interviewed him in 2007 about what his music does. It is intended to encourage, to inspire. And let me tell you, you hear it in every single song, especially with Vision. I paid more attention to him with Vision, and I studied the tenor parts of every single song with Vision that he composed on every album. Um, but let me just read this section. The reason I want to read this first part is because it highlights Mr. Julius James, who happens to be the husband of Dr. Navita Cummings James, who was my master's thesis Um, she was one of the professors on my master's committee when I was earning my master's at University of South Florida. She is a huge mentor to me. I look at her and I think about her teaching, and I'm inspired a lot by Dr. James' teaching. I was her TA when she taught I think it was the Dimensions of Racism class in fall of 2006 at University of South Florida. So shout out to, I want to mention the part where Richard talks about Julius James and what Julius James did for him. Both Julius James, my minister of music, who was my minister of music in 05, oh 05, oh 06, oh 07 at St. James House of Prayer in Tampa, Florida. Um, both him and Richard were members of the McKinley Technical High School, now it's closed, in DC, in class of 1967. They graduated the same year and they went to Howard the same year. I believe Mr. Julius went to Ohio State where he met who would be my professor, Dr. Navita Cummings James. And Richard tried to go to Howard as he describes in the autobiography, but um, was more motivated to start his own singing group, the Richard Smallwood Singers. Okay, I'm working with this thing here. Who's working with me? Here we go. Okay, this is where he mentions Julius when they were starting Howard University, telling him about a very popular singer. This is too small for me. See, when I hear certain, if I have okay, this is at the end of the 10th chapter called The Things a Little Money Can Buy. I'm trying to read it on this screen, but the print is way too small, so bear with me. The part that I underlined at the top here was very profound. Richard Smallwood writes in the 10th chapter of his autobiography, God was placing people in my life to bring me to my destination. And again, he's clear that he believes in predestination. Like there's no question. You hear it in the lyrics. You hear that every individual who believes in God has a calling. There's a calling on their life. Um, and it's up to each individual to discover what that is and to believe that people will help you get to that destination. And there's a beautiful story he provides in the second and third pages. I chose four of the 500-page book. I just narrowed down because I can't spend hours talking about every chapter. I'm planning a review for my website, and there was so much in this book. It's not even funny, but the most important part for me was how he demonsterized his father, the Reverend C.L. Smallwood, who was married to his biological mother. What Richard writes is, as I was continuing to prepare for my junior department recital, yeah, and preparing to graduate from high school, I remember practicing hard to get the pieces I had been assigned right. One particular day, while getting ready to leave the school after practicing, one of my friends, Julius James, he was my minister of music in Tampa here, who went to high school with me, ran up to me and said, "Guess what? I'm so excited. I really want to go over to the Andrew Rankin Chapel this evening. Donny Hathaway is giving a concert over there." And then he goes on to meet him. Richard later talks about how Donny Hathaway influenced him tremendously and told Roland Martin that Donny Hathaway taught Richard, you don't have to play certain chords. You don't have to restrict yourself from certain chords because conservative church people in the 60s and 70s say you can't play that. That's the club music. That's what he told Roland Martin. Richard told Roland Martin, oh, um, I would play certain chords in church and was told, this ain't the club boy. So Donny was the first artist. And Donny, oh my God, Donny Hathaway, the fellow Libran, October 1st, um, A Song for You that Whitney Houston redid, um, developed a close intellectual and clearly musical relationship with Richard when he went to Howard. So he talks about that there. This second excerpt is a turning point in Richard's life. He seemed to be going down the standard college path of just just drugs and everything. And he had one professor that woke him out of that stupor. Okay. Um, and this and this is on page 172, 173. I love what he says here. The part that I underlined was when um, he had work for me to do, Richard writes. I'm sure my protecting angels were working overtime, bruised wings and all. When the end of that semester came, Professor Kerr called me into his office. He informed me that, first of all, I had failed his class and that he did not instruct the caliber of student I had become. I could no longer be a piano major and needed to find another major. Um, but then he tells him later, if you, Richard, can come to summer school, learn a complete recital by memory, pulling from all four periods, the Baroque, classical, romantic, and contemporary, and perform it at the beginning of the fall semester, then I'll erase the incomplete F and replace it with an A. If you fail to do it, then the incomplete F turns into a permanent one and you'll have to find another major. And he turned himself around. But it's professors like these that really turn himself around. Now I want to jump to, because for time's sake, I only got basically 6 more minutes on this live. Yeah. So the last part is when he redeems the image of the father in his mind, because he had shared with Roland Martin and in this autobiography how his dad was a pedophile and was abusive to him. So in this part, this is page 500, and this chapter called Anthology, Richard writes, even as messed up as he still established some great churches around the country, many of which are still flourishing. He definitely had a gift for founding churches as well as preaching. He was the only father I knew, and I think he loved me in the only way he knew how. Yes, there were parts of him that resented me for what I represented, but then there was another part of him who was proud of me and encouraged me to be the best I could be in music. I believe he was put in my life to help me reach that goal. I've sat and pondered the idea of him ever being in my life. Suppose my mother had not married him and she had raised me in Durham. Who would I be? Would I be who I am today? Richard Smallwood asked. I believe there is purpose in everything. Um, yeah, this is the part. That's the part of that asterisk is the part that I just read, page 500. That's the second to last chapter. But make sure you check out this book. I want to read it and interview him. He says he battles with depression. In my book review, I'm really going to go in on the elephant in the room for me personally, which was his sexuality. It was never mentioned. And in my mind, I equate the depression with the total, it seems to be ignorance of sexuality and his whole ignorance of romantic relationships. And it's like, okay, well, you can try and ignore it. And that's in my mind why the depression manifested itself, because it's like, you can't, operate like those things are absent. I saw a quote in the dentist's office that said, if you ignore your teeth, they will go away. You can't really ignore that. They're part of your body. It's a part of your human identity. So it annoyed me that that wasn't mentioned, but I'll get into that in my written review I'm working on. This is the first album that made me start listening to Richard Smallwood. There's a track that I played on this album more than any other track. It's called My Everything Praise Waiteth. And I love the story Richard gives about how he wrote that song. Um, Even in his live performance, he says that for the things that God is going to do in the future, you praise him now. And that's where he gets this notion, or where he takes it from the Psalm. I forget which Psalm. A lot of his songs come from the Psalm, the book of Psalms in the King James Bible. And he said, and just the way he arranged the harmonies is beautiful. It's the song I listen to the most, My Everything. I used to listen to that. Actually, it's not the song, it's the reprise after the song. The reprise of My Everything I listen to more than any other track by Richard. I listen to more than any other music track. Just the way that Vision sings that reprise is just, it's heaven. It's heaven on my ears. It's very soothing. It's very relaxing. It's an amazing reprise. And my favorite song on this is My Everything. This is also the album where his mother tells him, as he writes in his autobiography, who his biological father is. And he says he was about not to do the whole live show because the news she told him when he was in his 50s, who his biological father is. And for me, that was a big motivating factor for me to finish the autobiography, is his knowledge of his father. He wanted to know, but again, it's this belief deep down that God is a loving patriarch who sees us confused, but is going to make sure that in the end we come out relaxed, safe, and sound. So yeah, this is an amazing album. So many great tracks on this album. I can go into each one, but My Everything has to be top on the list that I listen to more than any other. The reprise, I want to stress that it's the reprise I listen to, which is the small 2 minutes section that just repeats the chorus, and you hear his ad libs about how God is our everything. For each of us, God is my everything. This is an amazing album. I remember I shared with my fellow biochem major at Yale, Jennifer White. I remember when you listened to this album, Jennifer, with the headphones on, when we were in that grueling biochem lab that was kicking our butts grade-wise, and we were struggling, swimming, not knowing if we're going to survive or pass the class or have to take it again. But yeah, this is an amazing album. The first song that grabbed me is Come Before His Presence. He has an amazing soloist on this song named Debbie Steele. Yes, wow, she blew me away when I blew. This also on this album is, in my humble opinion, the best um, duet, the best duet of any recorded gospel album between Darlene Simmons and Sharice Nelson. The way they ad-libbed that song, Be Open, that is a composer's dream. That's a producer. That's a songwriter's dream come true. The way that Darlene Simmons and Sharice Nelson McIntosh, the both of them, they were going back. It's like the energy. They understood the meaning of the song and conveyed it in such a strong, powerful way. I love the song "Faith" on this album. Um, it's an amazing album. All of his work is anointed. But those two tracks really stuck out to me. Come Before His Presence, which I can play over and over, and um, Be Open, with the soloists Sharice and Darlene. Um, this, of course, is the very first album. I just played a live on my story the song I'll See You Again. It's the very last song where Tremaine Hawkins sings the reprise to I'll See You Again. But this is the classic that established Richard Smallwood as a gospel legend. It's the first big album. He has amazing tracks on this. I love the prelude, what he calls the prelude to Total Praise. Um, there's a song I particularly love called Angels Watching Over Me. I remember when I was confused, didn't know what direction I was going in my life. I didn't mind going out at that time because I was like, there's nothing for me to do. And the song Angels really ministered to me. Again, the reprise. He has the best, like John P. Keaton, the reprise of that song, Angels, Watching Over Me. And then I saw Valerie Simpson sing it, and I was immediately thinking of her husband who has passed, Nick Ashford, and how he's like an angel watching over her. She was very close, from what I saw, to Richard Smallwood, Valerie Simpson, and I Will Sing Praises. I Will Sing Praises is a beautiful song on this album. Um, yes, yes, absolutely amazing song. This song, this album, this came out in 2011. This was the first studio album, I believe, with Vision. I believe because I think every recording with Vision, Vision is the name of his choir, and Richard tells the story of his soprano, Lori Sly, telling him, "Why don't you just call the choir Vision?" And that name stuck. On this album, you have a lot of strong songs. Trust Me. Um, you have, oh, wait a minute. I'm not doing it in order. Okay, well, this is Promises. The album that I meant to put in before is Journey. And on Journey is probably one of my favorite tracks called I'll Trust You. And I would play that song like when it first came out every day. This album, the song that I played the most on this album is Praying for Peace, because Praying for Peace is featuring Layla Hathaway, the daughter of Donny Hathaway. Her voice is absolute soothing, but it's healing. I played that song over and over. I played that song more than any other song on this album, Praying for Peace with Layla Hathaway. And the choir, the way Richard wrote the choir in Praying for Peace is powerful. This is like that one song that makes me think of apartheid South Africa and how it's still overcoming it. That makes me think of world peace. That makes me think of the Cuban doctors. That makes me think of the need for people to come together. Powerful hand as we. Mm. The choir as a unison, as a group, is absolutely incredible in that song, Praying for Peace. Powerful hand as we honor ourselves and seek your face. Promise that you'll heal our land. Wow, amazing song. Praying for Peace. Check it out. Anthology was his last album, and I attended that recording, and I took an amazing selfie with his alto Tara Frentress. I took an awesome photo in 2014. I went to that recording in Landover, Maryland, August 24, 2014. An amazing time, amazing time. My favorite track on this, I've written clear before. I've played myself singing it on my story, is Hebrews 11. He also does a amazing track with Angela Winbush, who he worked with, who he sang with in the late 60s. And it's great to see her sing. It was great to see her. I was trying to get to meet her, but didn't get to. This is a powerful album. You have a beautiful song called In Your Presence on this album, sung by Maureen Brown Clark. You also have um, the Smallwood Singers medley. He does a medley that I really like. The Smallwood Singers medley is what I play often. But there are two other tracks that are powerful on this album. Amazing Love with his soloists Ted Wynn and Darlene Simmons sing Amazing Love. It is a beautiful song that I play often on a sunny day. If especially in my 40s, if I see a very sunny day, I'm playing Amazing Love from this album because it suits looking at the sun, looking at trees, the green in the grass on the leaves, um, looking at all that brightened by the sun. Um, what suits looking at that is also listening to Amazing Love on this album. Um, and then he made an incredible Christmas album. Two tracks are my favorite on this one. His Christmas medley, where he plays Silent Night in Richard Smallwood fashion, but also the soloists in his song "Oh Holy Night" are very powerful. Stephanie Winslow has a beautiful solo in "Oh Holy Night" that always stands out for me. Again, the last image that I wanted to share was the one of Journey because it has the rainbow, and for me, that suggested that he is part of the queer family. Uh, but he didn't talk about it, like Luther Vandross never talked about his sexuality. Um, but I'm putting two and two together, and I'm like, okay. But what he did provide was a very detailed autobiography of how to live the life that you love, doing what you love. And through his own valleys of depression, he was still able to do that time after time. Whatever he composed was excellent, was of high standard. I read somewhere on someone online saying, I felt like I was pledging alto when I sang alto in Richard Smallwood's music. Yeah, it's like a hazing process. Like it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for the weak-minded. It's for the individual who's serious about giving their all and he provides, Richard Smallwood's work and music provides a structure through which you can praise God, giving him your best. So we're grateful for it. But make sure you check out the autobiography of Richard Smallwood entitled Total Praise. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.